their approach to public service. And I know that in our audience that are many people who are or would like to be in public service, and it's a very inclusive term. So let's begin with a question about how each of you got into public service. Were you motivated to run or to go into the profession you're in because you're a woman? Or did you become more aware of the status of women as you geared up and as you accomplished what you're doing now or moved forward in your profession? Can we, let's begin with Katy Crosby.
Hi, Paula. Thank you. Actually, I feel like I accidentally found public service as a career. When I initially took my route to go to college, I wanted to be an accountant because I love numbers. I don't even think I really knew that public service was an option because I grew up, the way that I grew up, it just wasn't something that was on my radar. When I first received my first job, I was an internal auditor, and that job, I received a severance package and volunteered with the Dayton Urban League. And through that opportunity to volunteer with the Dayton Urban League, someone suggested that I go and pursue my master's in public administration. And in that process, I fell in love with public service. I fell in love with working in the community and helping to empower communities to address community problems at the grassroots level. And then from there, got more engaged in policy work, and that's how I got into the public sector. So it wasn't something that I pursued as a lifelong dream. I really lucked up into this profession.
And do you think that being a woman was part of why you came into public service?
You know, initially I would say no, but I will say my introduction to it was because I was working on a resiliency program for young girls with the Urban League. And I had 3 other friends, female friends, who wanted to do something in the community to make a difference. So I'm not sure that it's because I was a woman, but I was definitely introduced to a public sector career as a result of working with young girls.
And we're glad you were.
Thank you.
Ashley, what about you?
So from a very, very early age, Paula, I have been very interested in serving my community. I don't know where it came from. I'd like to think it probably came from my grandmother or my grandfather. My grandfather was a constable in Ottawa Lake, Michigan, just over the border. And just growing up with that kind of public service in my family, I wanted to make a difference. The problem is I didn't know how to do that. I knew that I talked a lot. I knew that I volunteered. I used to volunteer on campaigns, but I wanted to make a difference. So I ended up, when I graduated from high school here in Toledo, I went to Washington, D.C. for college. And it was a great opportunity to really pursue my interest in politics and in law. So I ended up working on Capitol Hill, and I had the chance to work for several different members of Congress and a Senate committee. And it really showed me just the issues that are taking place all over our country and the issues affecting women and girls. And when I left politics or working on Capitol Hill and decided to go to law school, I was even more aware of just how important it was as a woman, and especially as a woman of color, to be in the legal field. When I graduated from law school and went to Manhattan to the DA's office to practice, one of the types of cases that I prosecuted were domestic violence cases. And as a woman, as someone who worked with victims every day, and who would often have to convince some of the victims in our cases or our witnesses to go forward with their case, I was able to speak to these women in a way that my male colleagues could not. I was able to empathize and relate to all of my witnesses in a way that was, I think, a little bit more difficult for some of my male colleagues, because I understood where they were coming from. I understood their fears. So absolutely, for me, I was always motivated by a sense of public service, but like Katy, I represent the portion of the panel whose name is not outside of a door and whose name is not on a ballot. But we've been able to actually work and be effective in public service. And hopefully we could talk about that today, just how people can be involved, and even if they're not necessarily running for office.
Thank you very much. Senator Gavarone, Theresa, Did you get into public service because you're a woman, or as you've been in public service, has your feeling about women in that role changed and grown?
Hi, thank you. You know, my background, I graduated from University of Toledo College of Law way back in 1994, and I've been an attorney for a long time and raised 3 kids. And my husband and I have a little business in Bowling Green, Mr. Spot's, a little cheesesteak shop. And so I had my law practice going on, and I volunteered in the schools. And I started to get involved really with the business community. Being a downtown business owner right on Main Street in Bowling Green, I got involved with the downtown business organization. A seat opened up on Bowling Green City Council, and I thought, you know, there aren't any business owners like us on City Council, and that's a voice that could use representation. So I sought that seat, and I won that election and got involved that way, just because of my work and the business. And it was, you know, it provided a good perspective, and really working with the community that way. But when a seat opened up in the House, it was really what I was seeing in my law practice, because I worked a lot with families. I was a guardian ad litem who represented kids whose families were going through a difficult time, and I represented farmers and business owners and college students and all sorts of things. But it was really my work with families that made me seek out the seat in Columbus. The drug addiction crisis and need for mental health services really, I thought, you know what, I could make a real difference in Columbus. And that's why I sought the seat in the House, and then eventually the seat in the Senate. And a lot of the work that I do kind of centers on those things. But women bring a very unique perspective to the field that I think is important. You know, as a woman, I don't know, I was at home mom when my kids were little, and volunteering and just, it's a very different perspective than the men. But I've got to tell you, it's something it's a really valuable perspective. And I think it's important that we have women in positions and making policy, because we do bring a very different viewpoint to those decisions that we make. And but I didn't seek it out because I'm a woman, but it was my background and experience as a woman that I think gives me a different perspective, a unique perspective to the position I have.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anita.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of the panel. I'm very excited about it. For myself, I think my life experiences as a daughter in my home, my parents were migrant workers. Part of my speech when I talk to individuals is letting them know up until I was pretty much in junior high, my father was gainfully employed and suddenly had health issues. And as a result of that, it changed our entire income and our entire life, my life especially, since I was the youngest and still at home. And so as my father had health problems and he lost his job, at that time there was not FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act. If you had major health problems and you did not have sick time and you did not have a backup plan, you were forced to go on welfare. And so my parents, who had limited education, I was sort of their glue through government. I mean, I was completing my parents' tax returns. I was helping them apply for welfare. I'd always go to the meetings with my mom and dad, to the doctor's office. I was helping my dad apply for disability. And I think I just sort of then went into political science and then law school. And I benefited from many, many government programs as a result of my parents having been on welfare. And after school programs, the PIC Industry Council, many old folks who remember the Private Industry Council, if you were a low income student, you could get a job at the Boys and Girls Club, where I started my first career. And how I saw my parents treated, I think how I was treated helped me make a desire to change how government treated people. And in every position, from school board to recorder to auditor, working at the mayor's office, I always try to tell my staff, if that was your mother and father walking in the office, how would you treat that person? Would you, if they missed the deadline by a day, would you try to follow up with them to see if there was a reason why they missed the deadline? If it was your child being disciplined at a higher rate on the school board, would you question why that child's being disciplined at a higher rate more than others? Recorder, if somebody didn't complete the document perfectly right, would you make the effort to call them and say, may I help you complete this form, rather than just stamping it with the denial? And now at the recorder's office, empowering people to question the auditor and question how government works. And I've been fortunate because I always want to give Paula credit. I don't think I would have been able to run for office and been encouraged so much, because she was the first female party chair in Lucas County as a Democratic Party. And when I was given that opportunity to actually be the person with the name on the ballot instead of a panel or a board, Paula allowed that opportunity for me to be considered to be the administrator. And so I didn't run because I was a woman, but I think I ran because I was the daughter of all those individuals in government, maybe who wanted to make sure their family, their loved ones were treated better by government. And I ran with the support of women.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Herringshaw, Doris, your career now in elected office, but for a long time in a different kind of public service. How much did being a woman have to do with how you chose to move forward in your career, and how has that evolved?
Well, I really started my career in education, and my first job after college was in a very low income and disadvantaged community. And at that time, I realized that these families really had no experiences outside of their own community. So as the teacher, I figured out ways to involve them with people of other ages, with the community, to give them some opportunities to see there's more out there, and that life isn't just what you know it, and you have the power to change your life. After becoming, I would say, almost over involved in the community, trying to save everybody's life, especially when you have juniors and seniors in high school who had never been outside the community, and it was only like 5,000 people. It was, I found myself wanting to help more people, and more women especially. And my career then went to OSU Extension. And that really is an organization that helps people help themselves. So what was really satisfying to me is when I could provide the resources or the people that they needed to talk to, or information, or meet with them and say, if we try this, this might work. So what are, excuse me, what are your problems? What can we do to help you move the direction you want to? And just seeing the success in their eyes was just phenomenal. And I did that for a long period of time. Upon retirement, I hadn't been retired very long. And I had been involved in politics a little bit here or there, but my big thing was that our rural community, as well as the women in our community, were not really represented in a commissioner's office, as well as other county offices. City council had a couple women, and we could work together on projects. But I found it kind of interesting when I look back now that I really didn't get involved because it was a woman. I got involved because there was no one representing the, you know, the rural community, the women that were engaged in businesses. So as I became involved in the political process and started my first run, there were 5 of us. And I was obviously the only woman. But in that, I got a lot of support from women and from men saying, we need more representation of Wood County than what we have. And so that really gave me some, like a jump board, I would say, to help more people and to gain their opinions, and listen and again, try and solve problems for people.
A couple of other ways that public service is sometimes defined as services that are provided to us by our government.
Right.
And that's a much broader term, or again, services that are for the good of all the community in actual elected office. Lucas County has about 33% women. Surrounding counties and across the state is lower. In the broader world of public service, I think that in some areas women predominate, and in others it's a little more balanced. So
yeah, and in Wood County right now, we have 3 women elected officials in the county, in county elected offices, and that's it. And one of them is a judge and a treasurer and myself. So out of our 15 elected officials, that really isn't much representation. So I tend to have lots of conversations about women and how they can help. And here, this is someone that would be good on your board or commission. And then, you know, talk to that person and say, look, you'd be really good. And you can, this is how you can contribute. If they ask you, I think you should do that kind of thing. So it's just getting the right people in the right places, I think, and making that connection.
thank you so much. That's a great segue into our next question, which is, what would you say to women who want to run for office or to advance in another profession that involves public service? Can you give one experience where you think your gender specifically impacted your motivation, or motivation that you could share with other women and girls? Do you want to begin, Commissioner?
Certainly. I think one of the things was, or is, that there are lots of women in Bowling Green that are in influential positions, and I don't believe that politics is what's behind that. We all work together really well, and some of my best friends that I work with on a regular basis, I'm not even sure what their political affiliation is. We look more at the problem and how can we solve the issues, and who should we bring to the table to make sure that we have the right ears and the right voice. So the other part of it is, I guess I never thought until I got really involved in politics, the importance of gender. After, I don't know what's happening to my voice, sorry. After I had decided that I would run, and I only ran because people said to me, you would make a good commissioner. You should do that. And then in looking up some of my other information I have, you know, women want to be asked, or men, they just do it, you know. So it's good for us to be supportive and to be vocal. When you see somebody that fits in a position or you can work well with, you have to jump on it. And we have to encourage women to say, I can do that.
Absolutely. Anita, what would you say to women who are thinking of running for office or going into other forms of public service?
Get involved now. Talk to, identify your party in Lucas County. Obviously, I'm a Democrat, regardless of your political affiliation. Stop by your headquarters, talk to individuals, understand that every day is another opportunity missed. Right now, we have 4 female elected officers, and as far as administrators, not judicial. And considering our population, that's really not enough. I think that women are excellent candidates. I think we do better than men overall. And I think we bring such a better perspective as daughters, mothers, caretakers, and it's well needed. Your presence is needed. I understand that public service, being in office, doing your job is different than campaigning for the job. And so understanding that part is there's a lot of trainings available. You should, if you don't like being in front of people and being busy and eating a lot of festival food, I always tell folks, once I start campaigning, I don't stop that year. It's nonstop. I never want to be that candidate that said woulda, coulda, shoulda. And so I run nonstop until I win. And only one election that I did not do that, and I lost. So you are needed. Contact female. All of us on this panel would welcome you visiting us, seeing what it's like to be in our shoes for a day. And don't wait to be asked. That's the problem. We wait to be asked, and we really need to seize the moment. And I was so happy to see so many in 2016 and 2018, and then this year, or 2020, female candidates come forward and get involved and really change the face of our country, obviously with our first vice president, female. And so don't be afraid, do it now, because the men do not wait.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Theresa, what's your advice for women who want to run or otherwise advance in public service?
It's interesting. I need to piggyback off of the comments. I actually attended a national conference on women in leadership a few years back. And one of the things that was said is men run because they want to run. Women usually need to be asked before they run to elected office. And what I would say to women is, it's important to get outside your comfort zone every now and then, and elected office certainly does that. And to really have confidence in your background and your experience and what you bring to the table, and don't be intimidated by the men out there. When I started law school, it was intimidating. It was back in 1994, and there weren't as many women as there were men, and it was a bit intimidating. But I worked hard, and when grades came out and as projects came, it built my confidence. And it's really important to have faith in your abilities and what you do. I mean, with hard work and determination, you can do whatever don't be afraid to run for a position that's traditionally male. Don't be, and I got to say, when I'm in Columbus, I don't feel any kind of, I feel my opinion is valued. I feel respected. I've never felt, uncomfortable in any way working in that capacity. And when I got to Columbus, a woman legislator, actually Dorothy Palandis, she's now our director of ed, kind of took me under her wing and helped me out as I was a new legislator. And since then, I've worked. I've spoken with young women. I've spoken with people one-on-one, and just try to help encourage people to really, set the bar high and work hard, and don't be afraid to do whatever it is you want to do, whatever will, whatever your calling is. So I would encourage people to help younger women who are
Yes.
thinking about public service and work together.
Thank you. Actually, your path is a little different. Haven't run for elected office, at least not yet.
Actually, I have. I just won an election in
Oh,
2020.
no. Yeah. I'm trying to move on to Ashley,
Oh, sorry.
who's has been in non-elected public service and now in private practice. What's your advice to women in terms of how they're going to advance in their professions?
Well, I have so much advice, but I'm going to keep it brief. First of all, I would definitely say if you want to advance in a position in public service, I would advise you to identify what you bring to the table. I'm one of those people that believes that everyone brings something different and that we all have an assignment. And my advice would be to figure out what's that thing that you do well? What's that thing that you believe can help, push the needle forward when it comes to public service? Perhaps you're a great writer. Okay. Maybe you're someone who could work in press and communications for an elected official. Maybe you're an advocate. Like I believe my life's purpose is to be an advocate. So in my role, as I've said before, I've been a prosecutor, I've worked for different members of Congress. That's something that you can do if you believe you're an advocate. So I would definitely suggest that you do some inner thinking and really think about, what is it that I bring to the table and that I can do well to influence public service. So that's the first thing that I would do is identify your role and what you do well. Also, obviously get the education and training that's necessary. Don't be afraid of doing things that you haven't seen before. I know growing up, I didn't have family members who had gone to graduate school and law school. So I didn't necessarily see that, but it didn't mean that I couldn't read about other women who had done similar things that I wanted to do. So don't be afraid of going outside of the box. I also think that it's important to, really think about what are other women or other people what are they doing that I would like to do, and not being afraid to reach out, even if it's blind. So we are so lucky to be in this age of social media because places like LinkedIn, I'm literally on LinkedIn almost every day. And I will reach out to someone and just say, hi, I'm Ashley. This is what I do. I've noticed that this is what you're involved in. Can we talk? And more often than not, you'll find that people will respond to you and they'll talk to you. And if they're busy, then, that's one person, but you can't be afraid of hearing a no. And Paula, to address your question about an example of an experience that was impacted by my gender, what I'll use as an example, it's a little broad, but I'll just say when I prosecuted cases in New York City at the state level and also in Toledo at the federal level, because it was clear to me in those moments that I didn't just represent the office that I was in. Okay. I represented women. I represented Black women. Okay. And I represented, honestly, that state, or when I was a federal prosecutor, that portion of the country. And what that meant, though, is that there were times when, sadly, there were inner conflicts within the office where maybe there was something that I wanted to do on a particular case, and it wasn't necessarily the most popular decision in the office. So there were times when I had to stand up for what I thought was best and what I thought was definitely just for that situation. So my advice in terms of moving up in your career in public service is that not everyone is always going to agree with you. You're not always going to have an amen section. There are going to be times when you have to stand up for what you believe is right, even if you're the only person who's standing at that time. So I would definitely say that if you are interested, especially in being a staffer or being in a bit of a non-traditional role in public service, you have to have a thick skin, and you have to understand that everyone may not understand your journey. They may not always understand why you're standing up or why you have a cause that's bigger than you that you champion, but that's okay, because everyone's not supposed to always understand your journey. So I definitely think that as a person like me, who's been a staffer, who's worked for people like many of those who are on the panel today, you have to also understand that sometimes you have to stand up and do those things that are uncomfortable. The last example I'll give you is that as a staffer, there are times where you have to tell the person you work for, whose name is on the ballot, I think that I think that this may not be the best thing for you to do, and this is why. And that is one of the most difficult things to do, is to tell an elected official that you disagree with their actions. But it's so important, because if their staff doesn't do it, then who will? And in reality, you're actually helping them.
Thank you. Thank you. Katy Crosby, I know this is not a theoretical question for you, because I know that you actively mentor other women. Could you talk about what you say to them and how you encourage them?
Sure. So, one of the things that I always tell people, when I pursued leadership positions, I never pursued those positions because I was a woman. I pursued them because I was the best person to be in that role. I felt I was the best person, and I felt like my experience contributed a value add. And so that's probably the first thing that I would say. I'm not telling anybody to forget that you're a woman, but don't walk into the door pursuing a position with that in mind. You're pursuing that position because you're the best person and you know that you're capable of leading. And so that's the one thing that I will say. That's the one thing that I will say, because I think a lot of times we've all heard of imposter syndrome and how it causes us to second guess ourselves. And that is something that is so real for women and for people of color, because traditionally we have been told that, oh, this is not your time, or this is not your place. And so don't lead with that first. So that's the very first thing that I would say. One of the things, though, that I will say that being a woman does allow for, and I think this really is similar to what everybody else has said, is that there is a certain level of empathy and nurturing and care that we bring to the role. The way that we think about things, just because of who we are naturally, allows us to lead in a different way. And I think because of that, it opens us up to a leadership style that really allows us to show people that we care about them, and to think more broadly about the problem. It's not just black and white, but there's these gray areas that we're able to navigate and really provide strong leadership. And I think, in our office, in the mayor's office, you have 3 women that are leading the day-to-day operations. And to Ashley's point about telling your elected official how you feel, I would say that the mayor probably says, we never have a problem with telling him, how we feel about things. That's the one benefit of having, I think, strong women in the office, is that, it's our job to come to him and say, look, this, maybe let's think about this differently. And so I think that is the importance of having diverse perspectives in the office. I think that is the importance of having women in leadership positions, is that, especially when you're a mother, you have to navigate, especially if you have multiple children. I only have one child, so who has multiple personalities that have come out when she was a teenager, but you had to navigate those different personalities. And that gives you this extra ability to lead people that have different personalities, different ranges of emotion. You just come to the job in a different way. So what I would tell to women who want to lead or who are interested in public service, there is something, that a gift that we have as women, because of our genetic makeup, that allows us to lead in a different way. And what I believe, biasly, we are stronger leaders because of that. And I would say you walk into the door knowing that that is your strength, and not that this is something that should cause you to second guess why you need to be in that role.
Thank you. And you've actually begun to answer the next question too, Katy, which is, what's your support system like? And we're really, there's so much to talk about, but if you could very briefly describe the support system that helped you get where you are, and how can other people get involved?
So I was raised in a single family household with my mom is one of the strongest people that I know. And, if you talk to my brothers, I think they have some PTSD from being raised in a household with 3 sisters. So it's 3 girls and 2 boys in our mom, who are very strong women. And we don't hesitate to tell you how we feel about things. We'll go toe to toe in a minute. what I think it's done for them is probably help them navigate their relationships with their significant others in a different way. But that's my support system, my mom and my sisters. And then probably the most important person that checks me every single day is my daughter. And you know, when I am weak, or when I have contradicted something that I've taught her, or now that she's an adult, she's learned new things, she will check me in a minute, but then she will also be my biggest cheerleader. So it's been my mom, my sisters, and my daughter. And then I have several close friends that, you know, I'll give you an example. This morning I got up and mentally I just was not there. I felt like I had this mountain before me that I couldn't move. And I called my mom, and it's like, I just needed to have that brief conversation. So I think just having close friends and people that allow you to be vulnerable in the moments where you are weak, so that you can be strong for other people, just having those close folks around you have been a great support system for me.
That's great. Thank you. And again, I apologize that we do need to make this kind of quick. So if you could briefly describe your support system, Theresa, I know that you have a deadline here. Could you describe yours?
Absolutely. Yes, really nothing happens in this office without the support of family. I've got a husband and 3 now adult children, and that support is so important. But not only that, you know, when you're down in Columbus in the job, the support of a great staff that will talk to you about issues if they disagree with you. I certainly appreciate the opinion of anyone. If someone disagrees with me, I want to know why, so that we can look at maybe you're seeing something I don't. So it's very important that you have the support of your staff and have open communication with them and are able to listen. One of the most important things of this job is listening, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're getting it right. But working with people in the field, like the woman who took me under her wing when I came in, and the other people who've been in the legislature, you know, for years and have that kind of experience that really can help you navigate the waters and really be effective.
Thank you. Doris, could you briefly say what kind of support system has helped you to succeed? Commissioner? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Doris. Doris, you're muted.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I was hitting the wrong button. Sorry about that. Probably right now, one of my biggest persons that either call me out or help me are my husband and my daughter. My daughter lives out of state, but she calls me every day and says, "Okay, what'd you do today?" Well, you know, she may tell me that was really dumb. You better think about what you said or how you did it, or go talk to someone about it and get it straightened out. I went, "Oh, okay." And probably the other one is the staff at the commissioner's office. We have a very empathetic group of staff people, and they do listen and give you guidance sometimes, or you know, set you in that right direction or whatever. So I have to say one of my other guidance, some of my other guidance has come from TMACOG, which you may not think of as a women's organization, and there certainly are some women there and some men, but yet they are great mentors. They are wonderful thinkers, and you can put things out on the table and there's no real judgment. There's just lots of really good discussion. And I really appreciate that.
That's great. Thank you. We're really taking advantage of every minute Angie has given us. Ashley, could you just briefly talk about the support system that you've had and that you think women need to succeed?
Absolutely. As an only child, I think Rhonda Sewell mentioned it earlier that she was as well. I will absolutely say my parents, my mom it was her and I growing up, just the two of us, until she met my stepdad. And she is absolutely my #1 fan, and she will also give me that dose of reality when I need it, which is pretty often. Also, I would say friends as well. I think the people that you surround yourself with, that they can make or break your ability to get closer to your purpose and fulfill your destiny. And I truly believe that. So I try to surround myself with people who are going to be honest with me and who will help me identify my blind spots. We all have blind spots that we can't see. Also, just women in the community who are either in my profession or who are not. And I'm usually able to identify them by the way that they think. If they're a thinker, if they're forward thinkers, and if they want to just generally improve the world around them, then I find that there's synergy and we can support each other. And lastly, I'll just say my faith. My faith guides me every day. And, whether it's a prayer, meditation, etc., just being able to get closer to neutral, especially when the world can come at us from all angles. So I'd say family, friends, and faith.
Thank you. And Anita, tell us a little bit about your support system.
I'll keep it brief. Again, faith. You're not going to catch me in church every Sunday, but without my faith in God, I don't think I would have been able to get through this journey in life. And second, my family and my friends. My family's witnessed it our entire lives, overcoming obstacles and still dreaming and continuing to accomplish that American dream for everyone. And I would not have been able to run for office, give birth on the campaign trail, and then have my mother help me with my brand new baby when I ran for school board in 2001. My family's been my rock with helping me raise 2 young boys, now young men. And then my friends, what I realized is that over time, you'll meet people who want to be your friend because you're an elected official and now you suddenly are a person of influence. And then your original friends who know who you are, who don't want to ask for a favor, they don't want to talk politics, who know where I've come from, don't have to ask to get to know me, know my values. There's a small handful of them that I've known my entire life. And they are my saving grace when I need to escape and just not be the auditor or not be the lady on the gas pump. And so don't forget those individuals who were with you before it all started, because they're best.
Thank you, Anita. Dr. Heberle, would you wrap it up for us? You're muted.
Yeah, you all are amazing. It's so nice to see everyone. I'm here at the University of Toledo in the Department of Political Science, and I teach about women in politics and sexual politics. So all of these things are on my mind all the time. And I heard so many themes that I talk about in class all the time and sort of affirmed and also questioned about, how women get into this. And many of you said that you got into it because you were working with girls, you got into it because you were working with families, and all of these are gender identified sort of groups and entities. Family sort of almost says women for some reason, right? We don't think family, we think men and husbands. We think family, we think women's issues. So that's part of it. And learning, and then and that we're also that many of us get into it because of family influences. And Anita's story was just so incredibly powerful about, and I hear that in my classes from students quite often, that their experience with the system, with the state, is driving them to social work, it's driving them to law, it's driving them to be interested in that. So everyone here has such a completely different pathway of thinking about it, and it just shows the diversity among how women get there, but the gender is somehow almost always involved somehow. Issues of representation also that Doris brought up around the rural communities and women in business. So, and she also mentioned that the balance of women and men is uneven. We can't just make generalizations about women not being here or there. We need to disaggregate and, look at our communities and see where the blind spots are, see where the representation is not equal, and then work on those places. Because sometimes women are overrepresented in a sense, and then the value of that profession, often the salaries and the wages often go down. So we really need to look at how that works as well in terms of the balance. Another thing that I was thinking about as you spoke, especially since we have such a diverse panel, is that all jobs, every career that we have can impact the public. We're all somehow in public service if we are critical thinkers, if we're thinking systematically. So even if you're in a private law firm, so to speak, your work is going to have an impact on the public. And we always encourage our students in our programs to try to keep track of that. So looking outward from your so-called private space is really interesting. And I also was so interested in the discussion about women having to be asked and women and men just stepping up, because that is the, the ego factor is so involved in all of this, and it's gendered, it's definitely gendered. So I just wanted to follow up on all of your recommendations and say, not only do we as women who are already sort of someplace, although we're all continuing to move and it's all very fluid, we need to ask. And we also just, sometimes I'll just tell young women what I think and where I think and how I think that they could be leaders, and guide and encourage them, and to be honest and to see. It's so hard to get young women these days, sometimes still, to see themselves in these roles. They see themselves in direct service, which is awesome, but they often don't see themselves in leadership and guidance roles or political office. That just seems really distant from them. So I just, I think those are the points that I picked up the most. And the one thing I'll end up with is that I heard the word empathy over and over and over again. And it is a gendered affect in many ways, that women do tend to develop that, as one person said, through family, through the ways in which we negotiate and navigate with our children. And that is one of the things that we offer in general that is so important to the public service sector. So thank you all for listening and being here. That was just a fantastic conversation. I'll take it to my class this afternoon.
Thank you. And thank you, Angie, Dr. Fitzpatrick, for putting all this together. I'm inspired and looking forward to the follow-up to your summit and how we will all work on increasing women in public service, women in elected office, and how we can all serve the public by getting more women involved.
Well, thank you all for being here today. I mean, I feel inspired by the work that you've done and continue to do. One of the things that I think we could really use in this area is a coalition that is very clearly devoted to women and to gender equity issues and to intersectional gender equity issues, because as we heard in this morning's conversation and throughout this one as well, right, that women are not monolithic. We have diverse needs and unique needs. And so we need to also be looking at those intersections of gender and race and class and so on. So do we have any, is there any questions from the audience that we need to take? See lots of inspiration. Okay. This was a short session. Again, the beginning, not the end. So all panelists or all participants today are going to receive copies of these recordings. We'll have a follow-up survey. We'll have information about how to continue getting involved. We'll break for lunch now, and then folks can, like I said, hang around with us, eat lunch, go do something else. There is a workshop this afternoon where you will have an opportunity to develop or to even hone skills that you might already have that would allow you to advance intersectional gender equity. So if you signed up for that, we'll see you there. And if not, feel free to shoot me a message here in the chat box and I will make sure that you get in there. So, okay, thank you all again for being on the panel. Thank you, Paula, for moderating, and thank you for attending today. Goodbye.